All right. This is the sermon today.
It's a topic.
Yes, it is. And there's a story. Guy by the name of Steve in California came home to his apartment one day and found these. And that would be annoying, right? That'd be, that's bad. And so he was going to deal with it. He went to the store, he got, what are those, bug bombs sort of things? And the directions said for square footage of his house it would take 2, but he wanted to take care of them for a long time. So we put 25 in there. And he closed the screen door and left, and when he did, the fumes from the bug bombs reached the pilot light of his stove, and there was an explosion. It literally blew the screen door off his apartment. It broke all the windows. It burned his furniture. It caused $10,000 worth of damage in his apartment.
But it got rid of the problem.
Actually, by Sunday, they were back. So, this is kind of, it's humorous because it was somebody else's problem. But it goes to show how we can move from annoyance to anger. How if we let irritation and annoyance get the best of us, we move into a situation in which we blow the screen door off our house. Right? We go from something that's just kind of festering to this explosive event. Have you ever stepped back and wondered, why am I so angry? There's kind of a neat saying of anger is only one letter short of danger. Ever seen that kind of a catchy thing?
Yeah.
And we catch ourselves thinking, how did I get this angry? Maybe we're driving down the road, hypothetically in Cincinnati, and somebody forces us into a median, and hypothetically, why did I get so angry? Or maybe just you're talking with a family member, spouse, child, parent, and all of a sudden you erupt with this anger, and afterwards you're like, where did that come from? Why? Why was I so angry? This is a question that God asks Cain today. Why are you so angry? This is a question we're going to wrestle with because I'm assuming that I'm not the only one who has been angry over something that there is no need to be angry over. I'm hoping I'm not the only one who has not had anger get the best of me. This passage gives us an idea of where we should be rooted to help us not just deal with anger, but to be rooted in our faith in a way that helps us live life the way God intended. So let's take a look at Genesis chapter 4, verses 3 through 12. Fairly familiar story of Cain and Abel. It's on page 3. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. But Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you so angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it." Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." And while they were there in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." I want to think some about this question that God asks. Cain, why are you so angry? So I'll put that to you. Why is Cain so angry? Jealousy. Yeah. Yeah, and jealousy of his brother.
That God favored him more.
Yeah, that would really eat at him, right? Yeah. What else?
Sometimes when we know we're wrong about something and get caught at it, angry about it.
Our defenses go up. Yeah, maybe even walls go up. Because as far as we know, Cain didn't even bother answering when God asked. He's just, Yeah? Anger makes you lie. Yeah, because Cain ended up pretty much lying. How do I know? Am I my brother's keeper? It starts that downward spiral. We start protecting ourselves and start making it so, it's not my problem. It's whatever. A lot of reasons coming together here. And I want to go through some of these. And the first is this. Cain is so angry because he is sailing into harm's way. I understand that's a Navy term. You're a Navy person, right? Okay. A Navy term of a ship sailing into harm's way, of going into danger. And in this case, Cain has no reason to be sailing into harm's way, but he makes a series of choices which do that. First is this. What is this? Pride. Usually consists of 2 males and 5 females. Pride. Proud of that one. Pride got the best of him. And it's interesting how pride works, in which Cain refused to humble himself and say, yeah, I'm wrong. He put up his defenses, he put up his walls, and he said, no, I'm not going to say I'm wrong. I'm not going to confess any sin. Instead, he goes into the blame game, in which, I love this poster. The secret to success is knowing who to blame for your failure. It's not good. I love it because it's bad. All right? I don't want you thinking, why do you think that's so good? Because this is ridiculous. We know that success is not successfully blaming someone, but how often do we live that? We justify the wrong things in our life by blaming it on someone else, which is what Cain is obviously doing here. God doesn't accept his offerings, and so he says, everybody likes Abel more. He takes it out on Abel, even though Abel's just doing the right thing. And Cain's all mad because he's not doing the right thing. His heart is not right with God, but he blames somebody else so he can feel better because his pride prevents him from confessing. A question to think about some this morning. When is the last time you confessed a sin to God and were specific? Not just saying, God, I'm sorry for the sin I did today. God, I'm sorry for bad things. Thank you for forgiving me. But saying, God, I'm sorry that I said this. Please forgive me. God, I'm sorry that I neglected this person when I should have done this. Being specific is important to bring out true sense of confession and forgiveness. Cain did not specifically say, God, I'm sorry and I need your forgiveness. That's a mistake that we should be sure to avoid. Confession is very important. The next piece of being in harm's way. Anybody recognize what this is?
Hole in the wall.
Exactly. It's a hole in the wall. Which, if you're thinking, means self-pity. All right? We'll walk through this. Self-pity is when you feel bad for yourself, right? Oh, poor me. And we see this in the story for Cain, right? It's like, oh, poor me. God doesn't like me as much as he likes Abel. Oh, poor me. It's not my fault. Bad things just follow me. hole in the wall. I will show you how I should have self-pity. My brother and I, when we were young, we're both in college, we're home for the weekend, and we were wrestling. And my brother has always been bigger and stronger than me, but I've usually been faster. So the goal is that as he would do whatever hold on me, I could slip out and get around behind him. So we were in my parents' hallway, and he had me, and I slipped out, got around behind him, jumped on top of him, and pushed off the wall to send him to the floor. My brother's kind of strong, and he did not go to the floor, but my foot went through the wall. I have small feet, but I make big holes. And I thought, why me? Why other people wrestle without putting holes in the wall? It's not my fault. Why do these things always happen to me? Why do bad things just follow me? Not because I made a series of decisions of wrestling in a hallway that's only this wide. Not because I was using it to try to push somebody on the floor. It wasn't my fault. How often do we do that in life? Now, I know that we face circumstances in life that sometimes are not our own doing, but more often than not, we invite problems into our life. And we deal with them by saying, why me? This isn't my fault. Poor me. Cain was caught in the self-pity trap, I think, in which he's saying, this isn't my fault. How come God likes Abel more? I'll take care of this. And it led to hate. Our moms told us, probably, that hate is a bad word, that we shouldn't use the word hate. And there's good reason for that. Hate eats at us. We hold on to it, we let it fester. And when it grows to its fullness, we see the end result of Cain's hate. We see where that went. But we Christians are smart people. We know hate is bad, so we put a mask on it. We cover it up. I don't hate that person. But let me tell you the bad stuff about them, so you know how rotten they are. But I'll tell you, bless his heart. Some people use that phrase and it's fine. I'm not saying that if you say that you're bad. But how often do we unload some dirt on somebody just to get a little underneath them? Bless his heart. We cover it up, we put a mask over it. But our hate is there. In the call to worship this morning from 1 John, anyone who hates a brother or sister is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life residing in him. That's a strong statement. In which at first I read the story of Cain and Abel, and I'm like, whew, Cain, wow, buddy, what's wrong with you? And then I get this phrase in which, if you hate a brother or sister, and I've been pretty mad at people sometimes. And I think, this verse kind of puts me in a dangerous category. Hate is a dangerous category to be in. It puts us in harm's way. The final piece of being in harm's way is resentment. I like this quote by Nelson Mandela: resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies.
That's the opposite.
And this is the place that Cain ended up with God. He resented God. He's so mad at God because he's accepting Abel's offerings. And this separation breaks his relationship with God. What this idea of being in harm's way should remind us of is that we need to come before God, not break our communication with him, not let all these pieces fester and grow in our lives that are so easy to grow, but to come before him as we are. So one of Cain's problems was that he was in harm's way. He kept placing himself in harm's way. And another problem is that his relationship with God was broken. He was being separated from God because his sin was continuing. He didn't confess his sin, and his walk, his relationship was being strained and stretched apart. Again, what we read this morning. Do not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous. He belonged to the evil one. He was being consumed by his sin. For those of you who have flown, have you ever noticed how the people who have confirmed tickets, maybe they look at their clocks, their watches and stuff, and maybe tap their foot, but they kind of sit and hang out and use electronic devices. But people on standby who don't really know what their status is, they are anxious. They're like climbing the walls. They're at the table. They're trying to find out all the time. They're up, they're down, they're here, they're there. I think that's the kind of situation Cain was in. He didn't know where he was with God. He was separated from God. He had this anxiousness, this angst, that's just continuing bad decisions because he's becoming owned by his sin rather than by the master. Why is Cain so angry? Because he's mastered by sin rather than choosing the master. And this is his command: to believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and to love one another as he commanded us. You and I have a choice to make. Are we going to be mastered by sin, the way of Cain, or are we going to choose the master? There's not middle ground in between. We have a choice to make. Which is it going to be? We can look at the story and clearly see the fruit of Cain's choice of being mastered by sin, or choosing Jesus Christ as our forgiver and our leader. An important thing to think about is that Cain did not wake up one morning and say, you know what? I think I want to be a murderer. Today I want to do premeditated murder and kill my brother. It wasn't like this snap, one thing all of a sudden. It was over time. His distance from God, his being mastered by sin, led him to deeper sin. For each of us, we have a choice of whether or not we're going to follow the master. Now, on the one hand, we have that choice in which for all times we decide for eternity if Jesus is truly the Son of God, if he's the one who lived and died for us. But we also make that decision on a daily basis based on how we live. Do we serve the master? And this is the painful piece of the story. In the part of chapter 4 in which Cain's birth is described, Eve said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." 2 weeks ago, we looked at Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, and talked about how this is an amazing promise. After the serpent had deceived them, God gives a promise that the serpent will bruise her offspring's heel, but her offspring will bruise the serpent's head. When Eve gives birth to Cain, think about the optimism that she might have had of this is opportunity for God to be at work, of changing things. And it goes from a story of tremendous potential to a story of disaster. Because Cain did not turn to God, but was mastered by sin. You and I face that same decision. Master or being mastered? And I want to end with just a simple thing. We actually did this in youth group a few weeks ago. You get a card before you leave. This is a simple prayer. Maybe you've prayed this at different times in your life. But this gets us set up of remembering to talk to God every day. Think about how this story would have been different if Cain honestly talked to God. Instead of putting up that wall of separation from God, think about how different this story could have been. What about the story of our lives? How different would it be if we started every day with prayer? So my challenge is 7 days, the next 7 days, to use this prayer. And it's in the acronym. How can you do something without an acronym? It's adoration. We start out just, thank you, God, for who you are. Thank you that you are the creator. Thank you that you are awesome and powerful and change things. And we go into confession. We've covered that a lot of times this morning, of the importance of specific confession. And then we thank God for what he's done. Come up with specific things that God has done in the last day or two. Thank him for those. And we end with supplication, where we ask, where we bring our wants before God. Of God, you know that this has been on my heart for a long time. God, this is my plea. This is my request. And there's one more thing that could be added to this, and that's an exclamation point. And the exclamation point is where we pause and listen. Where we pause and wait for God to speak. The story of Cain and Abel is a tragic one. Not only because it's murder, but because it went from potential to disaster. The story of our lives do not need to be the same. I hope that we take care and engage God in prayer.